Alright, this video is a quick explanation between the nationalist hostilities and the conservative ideology and it's a explanation of the relationship of all the ideologies, of how they currently exist as of 1st to 27, 2018, current time is 4:15 a.m. Smaller government means less authority to be enforced amongst its people, which gives more rights for other governments or other governors to employ and enforce their own rules. The chain of command enforced as above any human being to ensure that the United States remains a United States, not a dictatorship, is by keeping the rule of absolute power above any human being. Ergo, we have a constitution. A checks and balance system exists in order to maintain a balance of control and interaction between our governors, states, and our domestic view and stability, which would be our president and how the world views us. The balance of which is supposed to be that each of the representatives is supposed to represent its constituents, not the president. Ergo, they are supposed to enforce and protect their people. To understand this, they are assigned to certain districts and certain states, which allows a compartmentalization and allows a lower scale that's easier to manage. And then they come together and vote for things. Because fracturing and party politics is inevitable, they planned ahead for this. Ergo, you have the Republicans and the Democrats. A third party exists as an alternative, but only in perception, being the independent party. Something that people create when they simply shut down and forego and accept that there is no option, no opportunity, no solution. That it's because there is an evil, that the evil is the only thing. Ergo, people focus on corruption. If one person lies or too many people lie, then that means the entire system is flawed and therefore must be shut down. This is wrong. A system is flawed, yes, no system is perfect, but it still means that it runs, and you keep it running for the sake of the establishment, which is the United States government. The longer it runs, the more it maintains, with its flaws, with its mistakes, and as so long as each person respects the bounds in which they are limited to, and each person enforces such limitations onto each other. Because the whole party politics thing goes into a realm that can influence the rule of law, there is also a safeguard in this. The 7 sides of the triangle, 3 units. There is the Senate and Congress and the presidency. Then there is also the Republicans, the Democrats, and the Independents. Executive, legislative, and judicial. 3 layers of intertwining judicial systems that are designed to keep each other in check, of course, and designed to limit, compartmentalize in a way that will fortify against too much corruption or any type of overthrowing of a government. Of course, this is just a system. It's very basic and primal. But there are still the other things like infrastructure and so on and so forth that needs to be maintained. This basic system is designed only to maintain balance of authority. And now we have the conservative ideology, which is to destroy the chain of commands and allow states to be absent of the constitutional law. Argo, states' rights. Argo, they want to remove the enforcement of police forces and change it out for something much more relevant and comparable to a civil warring state, or Niger, or some other country where factions fight for territory all the time, which is essentially to say that they think smaller government is better. But that's like saying less pipe is better to the extent in which you're cutting services of water to certain houses. There are power. There's, when it comes to a processor, the more they advance, the more power they consume. It's just part of the whole advancement process. The efficiency process is more of minimizing that. The now comes the breakdown, where things start to devolve. Liberal ideology on the left is very simple. High tolerance, high acceptance, which means that you look at your neighbor, you look at yourself, you can't see any difference, which in a sense, when you're looking at it from the abstract view of a policymaker, that all you have to do is think of the human being as a human condition, not a human being. Argo, a human program. The more you dehumanize, the more you take away the self-righteous ideology and put in more of an equilibrium. Every human program is equal, except to the point in which they extend that and create their own diversity, which is on their own ideology, argo, individuality. Now we have the whole aspect of America First. America First is basically, you could say in the country that America comes first above all. That's to say, you could maintain and run a country alone. You can't. You can't take from your fellow neighbors or your countries and say, we need this more than you because we come before you. No. I listened to a Trump speech. He was saying that America First does not mean America alone. That just means that he's saying that America comes above all others and you have to be subservient to us. He says he wants fair trade practices, and yet he berates other people trying to act big in front of his supporting base, like a dog barking at the neighbor, saying, we need fair practices, and we are going to accuse you of being unfair in everything you do because it makes us look strong, makes me look strong. And accusing people and utilizing people's ignorance per se with this immigration ideology. Visa chain immigration is limited to only your spouse and your children. But we have Trump lying about it. Now we have Trump saying that they've come to an agreement, which is exactly what was already there. Again, we have him just putting up bravado. But then it also comes down to a basic, simple premise. He wants to look strong instead of looking like a cooperative player in the field trying to cooperate with his teammates. He is acting like the dominant male who wants to be considered dominant by barking, puffing up his chest, and hitting it loudly. And his base sees this as strength. Liberals see it as weakness, because primarily if you want to do something strong, you do it in the court, you do it in the Senate, you do it in front of you don't go to your Twitter page and rally up a war and rally up your base, because your base is only going to be able to do one thing and only one thing only, which is destabilize the nation from within. The people do not have a say on these matters, because the people, Their representatives are the ones that have a say in this matter. And the matters. We can't have somebody going to their base and rallying them against a certain person. Which brings us to nationality. Nationalism is to basically impose one's national, quote, patriotism. It's not even patriotism. To enforce one's flag and ideologies and title of an American, just the title, onto others with force, and to try and intimidate people into denouncing their nationalities, to try and make themselves seem superior by bloodshed and intimidation tactics. Well, which is why they are known as the right, because the right is more about intolerance, is more about, well, as far as I can see, they're mostly just about playing party politics. When looking at these speeches, I hear Pence lying to the military individuals, saying that the Democrats are the ones playing politics against DACA and against CHIP, but CHIP was prevented in its funds were halted to CHIP because the Republicans decided so, by pretending that the United States was weaker and more failing than it actually is, by saying we don't have enough money for it, even though we do and have maintained a system. The system is being threatened because they simply don't want to pay. They don't want the rich people to pay. Which brings us back to party politics and the whole war against the Democrats from the Republicans, which is to say, the spreading of propaganda on which they say that they are corporates bought by donors, even though the Republican base are currently having this need to give more tax breaks to the rich. And this attack on DACA and such. I understand that DACA was temporary and all, and being as it is temporary, we can maintain it for as long as we want and still maintain litigation for something better. But instead of litigating for something better, they utilize the lives and the people who have planted roots in this country as a threat. And given that we have Trump claiming that they are rapists and murderers, that's what most people would call painting a target. And therefore the conservative base loves Trump, because the conservative base believes and sees all other groups of individuals as a burden on America. But then you have to go back to the human program. What separates them from us? We're still human, they are human. They come to this country, we were born in this country. Still, we came either from our womb, either from our mother's womb, or either from the border, from across the border. Take your pick. Nationalism is only to say that they want bloodshed, and unfortunately, we have seen Trump pretty much encouraging them. And a lot of people say that he's not the problem of this. He's a weak and fruitless leader who is incapable of challenging his base. There is, to iterate more on the right-wing politics, they say that, when you bring up an argument to them, they say, what about Hillary? And I say, what about her? If I were to go up to a criminal in the court, or if a criminal were to go to a court after committing murder, and there's clear, blatant crime or evidence against it, nobody's going to ask him what party he voted for. But in the right-wing politics, that murderer could get away with murder, mass murderer could get away with murder so long as he could say, what about the left wing? Or what about the jurors? What about the judge? What about the lawyer? How do I know the judge isn't biased? How do I know the jurors aren't biased? Who did they vote for? How they wouldn't know anything unless they've killed somebody, or so on and so forth. Pick a cop out. That is the way of the right wing currently. The right wing acts like the United States FBI is currently unreliable and therefore must be destroyed, but they are one of the many parts of that checks and balances systems that is the ones enforcing the rule of law. Ergo, they're not doing it to protect the United States. They are attacking the United States, which means I have to ask you guys, are you for the United States, or are you for the Confederacy and want the United States to fall? Because it seems like you guys want the United States to fall. I hear that they say that the U.S. first, and I see this more as a publicity stunt and a marketing logo. Because what I do see is that they say, no, not America first. I see somebody saying, kill all the immigrants. I see somebody saying that all immigrants are the source of all evil. I hear people saying that Trump was appointed by God and that DNC is evil. I hear people promoting the witch hunt for Hillary's emails and the witch hunt, several witch hunts. So, comes right down to it. We have a guy who says that he's, to summarize what Trump is that he is saying that unless you are my supporter, you are my enemy. And I'm going to compare the left to the right president to the left president, okay? The leftist president was Barack Obama, who was accused of falsifying his birth certificate, being a Muslim Kenyan who was supplying the Muslim Brotherhood with troops in America for his for his coup to replace the Constitution with Saudi law, accusing war games in a few stations of being a martial law training camps or a coup training camps. And we also have people accusing Obama of being associated to the Muslim Brotherhood. And then we have the right, and Obama didn't care. He did not care. He made jokes about it. He did business as usual. He didn't go to Twitter page and tirade about it. He did find it somewhat humorous, and it didn't hinder him from doing things. He didn't focus on his crowd sizes. He didn't focus on anything of overtly stupid. Now we have the right president, Trump, who's constantly bitching about his hands and constantly talking about how his crowd sizes were, telling the FBI to focus all its resources on only one investigation, not like it, because apparently in his mind, or to the right wing, the FBI can't hold more than one private investigation at a time. While they also accuse Hillary of currently being caught guilty. They say that she is attempting to get a plea deal, which if you've read the Inquirer, you would know that. Personally, I don't read the Inquirer. I took a look at it while I'm at the store. I don't buy it. And I don't suggest anyone else buy it. I do suggest somebody sign a petition to get that shit out of people's stores. Well, the conspiracy theorists alone is like, Now, when it comes to comparing the right wing to the left wing, the left wing understands that yes, there is crime on both sides, but crime is a part of the human condition, a broad part of the human program, abroad. And when it comes to the right, they say, if you bring up the crimes of the right wing, say the Klan I can't think of them all right now. Nazis. Wow, I can't believe I forgot Nazis. again, Nazis, they try to do cop-outs to say, what about the left wing? What about Antifa? As if to say that, both aren't wrong. The only difference is one promotes slavery and genocide and the other one doesn't, which argues the whole patriotism. It is patriotism to protest against racism and hate. Argo, we have the clashing of the left and the right, which means that the left and the right are currently fighting it can be best described as the left fighting for America and the right fighting against America. Because the right is currently being hostilely taken over by racists and Nazis and the works. If they don't want to be contributed or associated like that, then they should work harder to try and denounce them, because they're really not doing a good job of it. If they want to, they could try joining the left, because, that's kind of the left's hallmark. When it comes to the right and the left politically by its leaders, we see an intellectual war going on, where when I was looking over NAFTA says that it was an agreement or a list of agreements per se, binding agreements of earned trust, in which tariffs were progressively lifted and promised not to be placed. So long as you're in the agreement, you won't have to worry about being tariffed, either for or out, or in or out. So the propaganda about NAFTA killing jobs is bullshit, and we also have the propaganda about, DACA for one, and Obamacare for two, and CHIP for three, chain migration for four, and let's see, the GOP healthcare for five, and the tax bill for six, and the tariffs on the solar industry, and so on, and destroying people's access to disability health care in Kentucky, as well as the morphine shortage currently, the falling dollar currently, and the current record high outsourcing of jobs, and the lie about the carrier saving jobs, and the wall being built as Trump was offering people contracts to build it if they won a bid, in which companies made prototypes in which they marketed, and because the funding was not yet authorized and has not yet been authorized as of time as I'm recording this, that now we have Trump holding kids hostage, argo, and furthermore problem in which he is holding people hostage by saying that he will give 1.8 million people citizenship if the wall is funded. Argo, we have the right attacking the left for the sake of, party politics at the expense of people's lives, putting people's lives in limbo. This hasn't exactly been new of the right. Trump was the one who attacked DACA. Trump was the one that went to go and attack people's immigration status, pinned Muslims as the enemy, and pinned Hispanics as the enemy. Mind you, I get the whole cop-out. He said Mexican. I don't give a shit. They're both Hispanic. People from Chile and Argentina and etc. are all Hispanic. Just as Hispanic as the people from Mexico. And when it comes to what we have, the racist thing of voice, that was something. And yeah, people do commit crimes, and that is something that is a part of the human condition. My family got a virus in their computer. Well, guess what? I'm still using mine, because sometimes computers get viruses. That doesn't mean you should have to shut down or pin them all as the enemy. which means that the right wing is being led by a extremely racist individual who is racist by his own admission of putting a bullseye on these people's backs. Mind you, these people, it's like when Trump lied about how there was no vetting process for refugees, or how refugees were destroying other nations because they were all terrorists, and how they were, the people on the right are demonizing and judging people guilty before they've even done a crime. And then they complain about the left playing party politics, while the left is trying to do things as business as usual. They don't do the talking points. They don't go to Twitter. They generally go and they ask questions. When asked, they do their job, which is why they don't do things like the Republicans do, which essentially is right now just cleaning up the shit stain that Trump left on the carpet. Going up to the other leaders and talking about how this country is open for trade is bullshit, because this country's always been open for trade. It's always been open for business. The only way it would not be open for business if we closed our borders and stopped doing trade altogether. And being that the people are going to try and screw each other over all the time. People who can will, because if it benefits them, they will do it. Law exists to maintain a certain amount of order. For instance, we have the water in Flint. Granted, it's not the worst water around the state. It's still pretty bad. And that was an ideology of the Republicans taking back their state. If we were to put that terminology into context, if I were in Michigan and I wanted to take back my state or take back America, one way of doing it would be separating from the Union. They get to take their state back from the Union. And, doing that over and over again countlessly until you got a bunch of separated territories. Currently, California is faced with that right now, where I think the Sacramento area is trying to secede from California state, not from the Union, just from the state, as a means of becoming New California, which is what the Republicans would call taking back my state, or taking back America. They forget that America is a territory and a list of systems. It does not belong to me. It does not belong to you. It belongs to, well, everyone and nobody. It is a system. It is a territory. It is an economy. It is not your servant. So now we have the deflections of the Republican Party, which is basically to say that they keep on referring to Obama. Obama's not the president right now. He served his term. You can quit doing that because it's pathetic. You guys want to look tough? That's one thing you can start doing to look tougher, is not use Obama as an excuse anymore. Because he's out of office. Another thing that you could do to not look so pathetic anymore is stop trying to wipe Trump's ass. Hold him accountable. That's your job. Otherwise, you're weak and Trump's pathetic. I get you guys want to look strong, but appearances aren't exactly what's important. What is important is doing your job. I do my job. I do testing every day on pretty much everybody I meet all the time. And a lot of the time, there's going to be somebody who hates me. There's going to be somebody who hates it. It's not your job to be everyone's friend. Not everyone is a good guy. Not everyone's ideals are great. If I were to say, like I'm here for the forgotten people, that's a good marketing ploy, but some people should be forgotten. If I were to go into the Hoover Dam and tell them how to run their equipment, and that's another thing too. As the right is the